What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Friday, August 3rd, 2018. And thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. I don't know about you. I need a restful weekend. It has been a crazy one this last week here with all the stuff going on. And it was a busy news day again today. So let's get on into it. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in the control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. And, of course, in hour number 3, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us with her unique perspective on the world here. So let's get right on into it. Over in Syria, they're basically at the mop-up phase. And basically... Israel is claiming that warplanes of the Israeli Air Force had bombed several fighters of the ISIS-affiliated Khalid ibn al-Walid army near the occupied Golan Heights, and 7 militants were killed in the strikes. That was the second attack by the IDF on the Khalid ibn al-Walid army during the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, on the other side of the buffer zone, the Syrian armies, they're liberating all these villages, and more of the militants are they're giving up. So this is just about over, and there'll probably be little sporadic pockets of fighting here and there. But even Israel's defense minister, Avigdor Lieberman, is saying that the Syrian war is effectively over, and it's time to return to a pre-war situation with, of course, the Assad government remaining in power, which means the U.S. lost this one. Now, they won't admit that, of course. You know, they'll spin some lie about we taught Assad about, not to gas his own people, or we got ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which is nonsense. It was Syria and the Russians who got ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and Assad was not, in fact, gassing his own people any more than Saddam had nuclear weapons. But the lies do continue to pour forth from the U.S. government and the corporate media, because that's their motto. If at first you don't succeed, lie again. UN peacekeepers are returning to the disengagement line between Syria and Israeli-occupied territory. The United Nations Disengagement Observer Force had been along that separation line between Syria and Israel-occupied Golan Heights up until 2014. But then as the fighting in Syria got more and more intense, they basically, for their own safety, abandon those positions. Now they're feeling it's safe enough to come on back here and basically make sure that both sides are, minding their P's and Q's, as it were, and not trying to provoke the other. Russia is also deploying their military police on the Golan Heights. There's a justifiable concern, I think, that there could be some kind of a flare-up between Israel and Syria, probably coming from Israel's side. If you look at how Israel's behavior has just been escalating over the last few months, just getting more and more extreme. And we know that Netanyahu definitely needs some kind of a distraction, both from the corruption charges swirling around him and the fact that the IDF continues to use snipers along the border with Gaza. They're continuing that starvation blockade on the people of Gaza. Netanyahu wants the world looking at something else. And, of course, even within his own country, he needs people to stop thinking about that nation-state law, because he's actually drawing a lot of criticism on that one. A lot of Israelis think that was a really bad idea, and it was. There's no question about that. So wouldn't be the first time a leader of a country, started some kind of a war to get out of their own personal problems here. Think Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and that aspirin factory in Sudan. Now, over in Iran, unfortunately, U.S.-Iranian tensions are now moving beyond tweets into actual concrete actions and shows of military force. And we are, I think, only about 24 hours away from Iran conducting a naval exercise to demonstrate that they could, if pushed, shut down the Persian Gulf. And obviously the status quo in the Middle East is coming apart because of all the tensions and all the wars and basically the mucking about with other people's countries. Now, there was an article over at the original-antiwar.com which is asking what is a very pertinent question. Would war with Iran doom Donald Trump? Now, considering that we lost in Syria and we sure as heck aren't winning in Afghanistan, Iran is a war that we could easily lose that one as well. And that's not going to look very good. Plus, of course, Donald Trump campaigned being an anti-war president. He got up on that stage, stood at the podium and said, when I'm elected president, I'm going to stop all this foreign intervention nonsense and I'm going to bring our people home. Of course, Barack Obama said exactly the same thing back in 2008 when he was campaigning. All the candidates are always saying, oh, yes, I'm going to end the war. Well, actually, that's not true. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was saying, yes, I'm going to attack Iran. I'm going to bomb the heck out of Iran. So basically, a war with Iran is going to threaten the flow of oil coming out of the Middle East. That's going to threaten the global economy. It's going to further destabilize the region. And again, you have to go back and look at Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Yemen, wars that were started by the United States. What was gained? What was actually gained that was worth the cost in American blood and taxpayers' dollars? Not to mention the death and destruction that was just dropped all over the region. What made it all worth it? Access to opium? Access to an oil pipeline right of way? Is that how cheap our government views human life and other cultures? We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Over at the Christian Science Monitor, they have another opinion. They're expressing their concern that Donald Trump may be misreading the Iranian street. Now, as you know, because of the economic sanctions, there's a lot of hardship going on in Iran. And there have been protests over the economy, which are being seized on by the U.S. government as a potential foundation for another attempt at destabilizing the Iran government and executing a regime change, like they did successfully in 1953 and not so successfully back in 2009. But the Christian Science Monitor is basically saying it could backfire. It could backfire because the Iranians who are protesting in the streets know it's not the Iranian government's fault what they're going through. It's the United States. And you could actually see that this Trump-led targeting of Iran may pull the Iranians together into a single unit against that foreign enemy that has been messing with their country for so long. Now, Iran has come out condemning the Saudi crimes in Yemen and is calling for international community help. Doesn't look like the community's really all that interested. The world is ignoring Yemen, or at least certainly in this country, the corporate media is not talking about either Yemen or Syria. They're off the corporate media agenda. They're going on and on about that Molly Tippett, the missing girl. They had a report on Fox News this morning where all they did was complain about how the police weren't telling them anything. So basically, they got on there to report. They have nothing to report. And that was more important for the American people to know than what's going on in Syria and Yemen. Now, Trump is still trying to push his deal of the century with Palestine to try and sort of defuse the escalating situation over there. And at this point, I don't think Netanyahu even wants a deal anymore. I don't think he ever really did. He wants the Palestinians gone. He wants the land. He's angry because back when Israel was founded, most of the Palestinians left Palestine. They were chased out. They and their descendants are living in refugee camps in many other countries in the region. The people who are living in Gaza and the West Bank were the Palestinians who refused to leave. They chose to stay. And Israel wants them to go. Now, Trump's deal of the century is out there. He's talking about, we're going to give you a bunch of money and a bunch of, we're going to rebuild your infrastructure, which Israel keeps bombing every 3 to 5 years. All you have to do is give up your rights and dreams. of returning to your homes. That's all it is. Just give up any idea of having a state of your own or returning to the homes that were taken from you, and we'll give you a bunch of money, because money cures everything. Money fixes all in the United States of America. We can do whatever we want to you, and as long as we pay you off, that'll make it okay. I think Trump is misjudging the Palestinians on that one here. More of the crew members of the Freedom Flotilla are now speaking out to the media. And this article was over at Mondoweiss. And I love the title, "The Psychotic Tenderness of Being Boarded by the Israeli Navy at Sea." And it starts out with the quote from the IDF spokesperson saying the overtaking of the Al-Wada ship was carried out without violence and without exceptional event. Then they go down some of the things that happened. They slammed the captain's head against the wall again and again and again, and threatened to take him into the ship's hold and just kill him when no one was watching. The old mechanic, Arnie Biersch, was punched in the face. And of course, we've already mentioned this about the electric shocks, the tasers. So let's see, they tased Charlie, the first officer, Jurgen, the cook, and 60-year-old Mike, a chair of a trade union and a human rights activist from New Zealand. But it was all done with this psychotic tenderness. Now, talk about a pitiful bid for sympathy. There's a report coming out from Israel that 350 Israeli soldiers are having to receive psychiatric counseling after the Gaza war. And it wasn't really a war, it was a massacre. And more than 350 Israeli soldiers who took part in last summer's military onslaught on the Gaza Strip have since received psychiatric counseling for post-traumatic stress, because you don't know how terrible it is to have to go on out there and sit in a fortified position with a high-powered sniper rifle and just shoot people at random. So let's all feel bad for the murderers. They work so hard at it. I don't think so. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Where's the psychiatric counseling for the people of Gaza who are on the receiving end of those bullets? U.S. military aid to Israel is set to exceed a record $3.8 billion. It's the largest single military aid package in U.S. history. Now, there's a provision in all of this that Israel only use the money for defense. Because, as you know, Israel's just this poor little helpless, weak nation in the Middle East, and all those other Arab nations just want to destroy them, despite Israel's nuclear weapons. But of course, all Israel has to do is say, we're defending ourselves against the Palestinians, and they can shoot into Gaza with sniper rifles. Reminds me of an episode of South Park where the character, the real redneck character, is out there in the woods teaching the kids about hunting. And the kids are saying, isn't hunting illegal? And the guy says, well, there's a way around that. You just shout, he's coming right at us, because you're allowed to shoot the animal if it's attacking you. And then he says, he's coming right at us, and shoots this deer who was just grazing. That's, I mean, it's silly on South Park, and it's silly in Gaza, is what it comes down to. Now, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is urging Northern Ireland to cancel their soccer match against Israel. And they succeeded in getting Argentina to cancel the soccer match with Israel last June. And BDS is saying basically Israel is out there trying to play these soccer matches and everything to try and polish their image, that they're using international sporting events to prop up their failing image as it becomes increasingly isolated for what it's doing. So I hope Northern Ireland goes along with that one here. Meanwhile, down in Tunisia, activists and trade unionists are demanding their government prevent an Israeli chartered cargo ship from docking in the country. Now, the ship is flying the Turkish flag, but it is being operated on behalf of the Zim Shipping Company, which is an Israeli shipping company partly owned by the Israeli government itself. And basically, the Tunisian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel has said it would be a scandal to allow this boat to dock in Rades, especially since last Sunday, when the Israeli Navy intercepted the Freedom Flotilla in international waters. Now, they got the trade unionists on their side, and that's going to give them some teeth on this whole thing. Now, the other day we were talking about the Druze. The Druze is one of the many religious ethnical groups living in Israel. They're not considered Muslim, but they speak Arabic. They're not as looked down upon as the Palestinians. In fact, the Druze serve in the IDF military, and they serve in many high positions within the Israeli government. But they got thrown under the bus with the Palestinians by this nation-state law, and they're not happy about it. They don't believe that they should be relegated to second-class citizenry. So Netanyahu had a meeting with Druze leaders yesterday when a prominent Druze activist and former IDF brigadier general criticized the nation-state law. And Netanyahu just got up and walked out. Now, up in Ukraine, there's something going on with the Ukrainian troops because apparently Ukrainian troops are committing suicide at an alarming rate. Now, unfortunately, suicide is a reality of life in a war zone. It's covered up usually, but it is a reality. And apparently the situation in the Donbass has descended into a repeat of trench warfare. And that's got to be tough on those kids. Now, the U.S. Senate is preparing a new bill to throw more sanctions at Russia. In fact, they're calling it the Sanctions Bill from Heck. And Senator Lindsey Graham, who's one of the proponents of the bill, is saying that the current massive U.S. sanctions against Russia have failed, saying that we need more sanctions in order to punish Russia. Oh, for doing what? Well, for interfering in the 2016 election. Well, could you show me some evidence they actually did that? Because in the United States of America, you're not supposed to punish somebody until they are proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And a herd of prostitutes and correspondents on the corporate media just constantly repeating, Russia interfered, Russia interfered, Russia interfered, is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In fact, the more they scream it, the more I'm doubting the story. Methinks they doth protest way too much. If they keep this up, they are going to provoke a real confrontation with Russia. I don't think they want that. I think they just want to return to the Cold War, where the American people are shivering underneath their bed blankets at the thought of the Russians and throwing their children and their money at the defense establishment, but never actually have to fight them. Yes, there were proxy wars, like Vietnam, but we never once went directly head-to-head against the Russians, and it's a good thing. The only time we came close was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that was provoked by the U.S. putting nuclear missiles in Turkey aimed at Moscow. Now, Paul Craig Roberts came out with an article talking about the situation down in South Africa. He's saying they're on the road to barbarism, and so is the rest of the West. And he says the problem is right now that on Human Rights Day, there was a rally in South Africa where human rights is now associated with cutting the throat of whiteness. And we're beginning to see that same confusion here in the United States, where human rights means getting rid of the white people. Anti-white bias is becoming normalized in our society as it has become normalized in South Africa. And South Africa, and for that matter, Zimbabwe, are showing us what will ultimately happen if we let that continue. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about events down in South Africa as a possible bellwether of what's happening everywhere else, that anti-white sentiment is being fanned on up. Now, there's been a lot of violence against white farmers in South Africa. Many of them are now fleeing to Russia, where Putin is giving them free land and letting them start farming again out there in toward the middle of Russia, which is still pretty much undeveloped. So, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa campaigned on this idea of white people's land to be taken without compensation, and then it'll be distributed to black people, which Ramaphosa said will be good for the economy. This is being criticized around the world, saying it will probably spark riots as well as a deep economic recession. And South Africa, of course, is going to have to modify their constitution to allow this to happen. But Ramaphosa seems to be moving ahead with this. Now, here is the problem. They already went through this exercise over in Zimbabwe. They basically took away all the farmlands from the white families who'd been living on them and farming there for generation after generation after generation, and divided them up among the black people. And it was an absolute disaster because the white farmer families basically left and took with them the knowledge of how to make farming work. Now, I'm a farm kid. I grew up on a farm, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's not as easy as you might think. I know the people on either coast, when they're, looking down at flyover country, and they have this stereotype image of a farmer is just sitting around watching the crops grow. Believe me, it is nothing like that. And so what happened is Zimbabwe suffered massive famine. Their economy melted down. Zimbabwe is the country that wound up with people walking around with $100 trillion paper notes in their pockets. It was a disaster in Zimbabwe. It's going to repeat in South Africa. So now, apparently the head of Strategic Command, Air Force General John Hyten, is saying that North Korean denuclearization is moving in a positive direction. Now, this is the guy who would actually be in charge of launching nuclear strikes on North Korea if it came to that. But he says, to him, it looks like it's moving forward. Slowly, but it's moving forward. Pompeo, of course, is saying exactly the opposite. But I still think that Kim Jong-un's plan is to go ahead and denuclearize and reunify with South Korea, which would remove the threat of a U.S. invasion. I think the next step is to formally end the Korean War. That's got to be the next step. Alrighty, now here's an article that came out of Mint Press News, and it says U.S. hegemony declines as Southeast Asian nations pledge integration with China. In other words, all these Southeast Asian nations are looking at China's ascendancy and the rapidly weakening U.S. military presence, and they're saying we're going to slide on over and align with China, because after all, China's closer to home. They're also Asian, and we are an empire in decline. And I just hope that some hothead doesn't try and prove we're still the greatest nation on earth by just launching nuclear strikes in all directions. Noam Chomsky has come on out talking about regime change in Nicaragua, and he made a very interesting and spot-on comment. He's responding to Obama's recent interview on Democracy Now! To Obama's recent comments about how the nation is just, there's a lot of corruption, a lot of repression, it's autocratic, undoubtedly. And Noam Chomsky's view is why the U.S. has targeted Nicaragua for regime change. One would think that a neoliberal regime, especially if it were authoritarian and repressive, would be just the ticket to curry favor with Washington. So a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but Noam Chomsky is absolutely right. The U.S. loves tyrants as long as they're the U.S. tyrant. Now, it may simply be that Ortega just doesn't want to do what the U.S. tells him to do. And of course, that right there, that's a cause for war or for regime change. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break. And when we come on back, more about war, weapons, the economy, science, death, grief, sorrow, murder, and a fashion show. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website, by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're going to take a phone call. Walt in California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. I'll keep this short and brief, but first I have to say, besides being the best source of information and commentary, I spend an unhealthy amount of time doing so in lieu of TV, movies, and music, which is personal, and I get into when I need it. Get away, but the pressing matters that you address are important. I support you. I support RBN, and I urge everyone to do so while we still can. So
Thank you.
I was calling
Thank you
on
for
the
those
topic.
kind words.
I was calling on the topic of you brought up. Happened to be something on my mind, and I sent you a email earlier, and I don't do it often, but basically with South Africa, I just want listeners and viewers to possibly check out the documentary Farmland.
Yes.
Farm, as in the farm you grow up on, and Lands by Lauren Southern. and it's on YouTube or BitChute. And then also Faith J. Goldie, I emailed you about another documentary she had, or not documentary, interview about white genocide in South Africa. And I think those are two very, they're not taking a standpoint. With Lauren Southern, she actually goes there, gives you video footage, but again, Farmlands by Lauren Southern and Faith J. Goldie's White Genocide in South Africa. Any viewer or listener can look it up. You'll get some good information. And the last thing I'd like to say is I really enjoy how you deal with people who are off topic, disagree with you, or are outright Looney Tunes. And I thought yesterday you cutting everyone short and respectfully was really wonderful.
Well, I do try and be gentle. You know, I'm trying to keep the show on track here, and we do get a lot of callers who try and go off topic or try and junk up the show. But Mike and I just keep the show moving forward as best as we can. Is there anything else you want to say, Walt?
No, that's it. Keep doing it up. Keep doing the great work. Keep it up.
I will, just as long as I can. Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go here and get on back to the news. Okay, so we've been talking about Trump's space war initiative or Space Force initiative. And the defense budget for next year had no money for it. But the Pentagon is already setting up the command structure, the procurement structure, and sure enough, Congress has now approved the development of missile interceptors in space as part of the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act. Apparently, they've gone back in and amended for it. They're calling for a working prototype by 2022. And last year's defense bill actually contained similar language, but specified the project would only move ahead if endorsed by the Defense Department's ongoing Missile Defense Review, which is still not being delivered yet. Now, my concern here, first of all, this seems to be a repeat of Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, otherwise known as Star Wars, which proved to be hugely expensive and produced very little for all that money spent. In fact, it was a major factor in the reversal of America's economic fortunes because during the 12 years of Reagan-Bush, America went from being the world's largest creditor nation to the world's largest debtor nation, and we are still there. We have the world's largest debt. Now, my second concern, and I've expressed this before, is that war in Earth orbit is very different from war in the air. In the air, if you fire a missile at the enemy vehicle and you hit it, it blows up and all the pieces settle to the ground, and that is it. The skies are clear again. That's not how it works in low Earth orbit. You fire a missile at a target in orbit, that target is going to blast apart, and some of the debris will re-enter the atmosphere and burn up. A lot of it's just going to go into different orbits, unpredictable orbits, pieces that are going to be too small to track from the ground. And they're going to start hitting other things like weather satellites or communication satellites or who knows what all else. They'll break apart and the pieces will go into different orbits. You could start a cascade effect that would literally turn all of the satellites in low Earth orbit, and there are a lot of them, into junk, into shrapnel, that basically would make it impossible to launch anything into space until it all finally deorbited. And some of that stuff can take a long time to come down. I think Explorer 1 is still up there. They lost a camera on Gemini 8. That's still up there. This is a bad, bad idea, but unfortunately, people who love war, they only think about getting to victory, and after that, it's somebody else's problem. So what if we've dumped a whole bunch of drums of chemical weapons in the ocean over there. That's not our problem to deal with. Let somebody else worry about, the nuclear waste left over from building the atomic bombs, or the remains of all the germs we did. And that's not our job. Was to win the war, and that's all we care about. Now, speaking of the Pentagon, the spending is wildly out of control, and apparently the Defense Department has spent $21 billion in taxpayer money over 2 years without telling anyone what services were rendered or which companies benefited. Now, there are watchdog groups that are trying to figure out where the defense money is going, try to identify the frivolous spending. But there's something called the Other Transaction Authority, and under it, the Pentagon can award money without the usual disclosures or due diligence normally required of federal contracts. In other words, it's a black hole. When they use the Other Transaction Authority, the money just goes out, and it's gone, and nobody knows where. Now, story out of antiwar.com. Apparently, another provision within the National Defense Authorization Act includes provisions on civilian casualties in war, because, as you know, the public is becoming aware there have been a lot of civilian casualties in all of these U.S. wars. And the language in the bill requires the Pentagon to create a high-ranking civilian post at or above the level of an Assistant Secretary of Defense that would be in charge of establishing uniform processes on recording strikes, investigating reported casualties, trying to reduce risks to civilians. Good luck on that one. And establishing uniform standard for both acknowledging responsibility and offering payments for the families of victims. There it is again. Sorry we blew up your kid, but we're going to give you a bunch of money, and that's going to make it all right. Because that's the thinking in the United States. If you've got enough money, it doesn't matter what you do, money will get you off the hook. So, now there was this article over at Information Clearinghouse, and the title is "The United States is the Only Remaining Colonial Power." And I disagree with that title, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But basically, the gist of the article is the U.S. government has never allowed independent governments in Latin America. Every time people elect a government that represents them instead of the U.S. economic interests, Washington overthrows the elected government. Marine General Smedley Butler told us many times, there is no doubt of it. And it's not just in Latin America. They did it in Iraq. They tried to do it in Syria. They failed. Currently, Washington is trying to overthrow the governments of Venezuela and Nicaragua and has bought off the Ecuadorian government with oil purchases and the usual personal bribes. Now, the reason I disagree with the title is I would take out the word only. The United States is a colonial power. It's a covert colonialism. They don't go into the conquered country and hoist the American flag. That's sort of went out with the 19th century. But I think Israel's playing these exact same games. They've certainly done it to our politics. Everybody who's elected to high office in this country is Israel friendly. We're a colony of Israel. Under the thinking presented in this article, the United States is an Israeli colony. Now, turning to the domestic politics here, lawyers for Manafort are looking to call Rod Rosenstein as a lead witness because 8 years ago, Paul Manafort was investigated for the exact same thing that he's been indicted for by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. But 8 years ago, the investigation, which was led by Rod Rosenstein, basically said there's nothing there. They exonerated him. So they're going to put him on the stand and say, why? And he's going to come up with some reasoning. We didn't find anything there. At which point Manafort's lawyer is going to tell the judge, well, if there wasn't anything then, there isn't anything now. Dismiss the case. Alan Dershowitz has come on out and said basically what it comes down to is Manafort's crime is associating with Donald Trump. Robert Mueller has been unable to find any evidence that President Trump colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election or that he's obstructed justice. So he turns around and throws the book at Manafort. And maybe he's trying to get Manafort to roll on Trump to get an obstruction charge. Or maybe he's just behaving like somebody who's had a really bad day and they get home and they kick the dog. And Manafort's the dog. Now, Steve Bannon is saying President Trump should fire Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein within the next 72 hours for clearly obstructing justice if the Department of Justice doesn't cough up all the documents sought by congressional investigators. And I agree, it's time for Trump to get tough. Trump doesn't seem to understand what's going on. The Department of Justice and the FBI are stalling. They're stonewalling. Some of these documents congressional investigators have been after for months. And the FBI and the Department of Justice do not have any legal reasons to delay this. But what they're doing is they're waiting until November. Because they're hoping the Democrats, using all those illegal immigrant voters, are going to be able to steal the House. At which point, when the House convenes in January, they'll simply shut down all these investigations. Now, privately, senior intelligence officials are backing President Trump's plan to revoke security clearances of former CIA Director John Brenner and former Intel Chief James Clapper. And apparently on Trump's list was Rice, McCabe, and Comey. I notice nobody talks about Hillary. Does she still have her security clearance from being Secretary of State? And if so, why? I'd like to know that. Meanwhile, GOP lawmakers are demanding declassification of the Bruce Ohr FBI interviews. They want the FBI's FD 302 forms on 12 interviews they conducted with twice demoted Department of Justice official Bruce Ohr between December of 2016 and May of 2017. The FBI interviews will shed light on Ohr's relationship with Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm his wife Nellie Ohr worked for. Now, Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley is frustrated with the Department of Justice stonewalling. He's been seeking these documents on Ohr for months now. Trump better get on in there. I mean, Department of Justice basically works for the executive branch. Trump's got to go on there. He's the boss. He's got to start acting like the boss. Or he's not going to have that job much longer. He doesn't seem to realize how many people around him don't like him, actually hate him. Again, it's a replay of John F. Kennedy, surrounded by enemies. Earlier today on Fox News, they were running the story where most of Trump's cabinet, are just absolutely convinced Russia interfered with the 2016 election. Trump needs to be paying attention to this stuff. He needs somebody to be giving him much better advice than he's getting. I think he's being walled off. They're not letting him see any of this stuff out there. Because I think if he knew what was going on, if he understood, he would do something. He is the boss. It's time for him to start acting like it. And I know he's enjoying flying all over the country and being at rallies, and he's really good at speaking extemporaneously. But that's not his job anymore. His job is to be running the country, and part of that job is getting the government back in line. Getting them back to playing by the rules, following the letter of the law, digging out the corruption. And I know there's a lot of it. And again, Trump campaigned on draining the swamp. And he's not doing it, unfortunately. Now, former Obama State Department official Jonathan Weiner is apparently attempting to come clean, and he's admitted he was the one who passed on a dossier from Clinton operatives to Christopher Steele, the author of the infamous Trump dossier. And he basically wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday saying, Devin Nunes is investigating me, and here is the truth. And he said, yes, I got this information from the Clinton campaign, and I gave it to Christopher Steele. And he also confirmed that those Clinton operatives were aware of the dossier effort, which makes Hillary Clinton's denials of knowing about the dossier even less credible than they were already. Now, Christopher Steele is turning out to be a very interesting character. Christopher Steele, back in 2006, when he was with MI6, was the person who accused President Putin of having ordered the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko with polonium. In 2016, he also worked freelance for the U.S. Democratic Party, which is when he wrote that dossier. And now, again, in 2018, he's involved with MI6. He's part of the people who put out this story that Putin was behind the Novichok poisoning of Sergei Skripal. We'll be right back.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And China has basically decided that they are not going to go along with the sanctions against Iran, and they are going to continue to buy oil from Iran. And again, we're hearing this from more and more countries. They're refusing to follow the U.S. lead. And I can imagine there's probably a lot of huffing and puffing in Washington, D.C. How dare those other countries go their own independent way? You know, we're the United States of America. We're in charge here. And I'm sure there's going to be a phone call to Beijing reminding them that the U.S. could basically nuke the place if they don't go along. What a mess. But you know, during the collapse of the Roman Empire, during the collapse of the Soviet Union, things got crazy and messy as well. And it's certainly happening here. James O'Keefe's Project Veritas has a new undercover video of an Antifa fight instruction program. They're literally teaching their activists how to seriously maim and possibly kill their political enemies. And on the video, you can hear the instructor saying, if you get a good liver or kidney shot, it's pretty much crippling them. They're going to be pretty much doubled over in a lot of pain. And the instructor also recommended breaking one of the floating ribs to cause maximum pain. And this is getting dangerous. Antifa is training to use serious violence. It's real brown shirt stuff. It's exactly what it is. Now, here's a story that came on out from fair.org. Fairness, well, basically, it's talking about the movie that came out, Shock and Awe. And as you know, every time there's a huge embarrassment, like Saddam really didn't have nuclear weapons, the corporate media shrugs and said, well, we had no available alternative narrative. You know, we all got it wrong. We were all wrong, so you can't really point your fingers at them. But this movie documents the fact that there were these reporters over at Knight Ridder, who was one of the largest newspaper publishers at the time. It's now been absorbed by McClatchy. And these reporters, like me, were suspicious of the claim that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. And this movie, which is directed by Rob Reiner, basically tells the story of these journalists. And you have Jonathan Landay and Warren Strobel, who are the reporters. It's got a stellar cast, by the way. Now, for reasons which probably will not escape you, the corporate media has kind of panned the movie. It's not doing all that well. They loaded up RottenTomatoes.com with all kind of criticism. Claire and I saw this movie. It's actually very good, and I strongly recommend it. It's still on pay-per-view. It's called Shock and Awe. It's about when media does the job right. We'll be right back after station identification.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, We need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open. 800-313-9443. Now, as you know, there is this growing rancor with the corporate media over Trump's comments about how they're the enemy of the people, which, when they lie as constantly as they do, they are. And again, referring back to that movie Shock and Awe, the entire U.S. corporate media was pushing the story Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and only these two reporters at Knight Ridder actually went on out and found out for themselves what was going on, and they reported the truth. That's what the job is really supposed to be, not just accepting a White House press handout and saying, the White House today said the usual blah, 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 blah. Well, as you know, CNN's Jim Acosta got heckled at a recent Trump rally. Apparently it's happened a few more times. CNN doesn't think it's funny. They're devoting a lot of airtime to, how dare you dare to dare. And they're playing the victim card. They want us to feel sorry for all those poor prostitutes and correspondents. And I don't. They did it to themselves. They destroyed their own reputations, their own credibility, their own likability by standing shoulder to shoulder with the war machine and lying us into war after war after war after war. And it's not like the abuse is one way, because you've got corporate media reporters and celebrities are calling Trump supporters Nazis, KKK, even calling for them to be euthanized after the Tampa rally. Everybody's talking violence. I don't like that. Cut it out, people. Okay, let's say Captain Jack in Northwest Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. How you doing there? I'm calling about that hurricane that's inbound for you guys. I saw it on the internet. It said it could be a 5, but before it gets there, and might do something with that volcano going on the Big Island. What's the deal on that?
It might. It weakened a little last night. I just checked it over the commercial break, and it's strengthening again. Of course, these storms do weaken at night because the temperature drops. But it's still like about 2,000 miles away. If it does get here, it'll be getting here about this time next week. And obviously, we're keeping an eye on it. But the track could just shift at any moment. I remember one time when I was back working on Final Fantasy, and there was a hurricane aiming right at Oahu, coming straight out of the east, and everybody in Honolulu had basically shut down their businesses and sent their employees home, just thinking it was going to be an epic disaster. And at the last second, the storm just like caromed off to the north. And it can happen like that. Now, obviously, Claire and I, we do have our disaster kit. We have our hurricane kit. And when we get to, next Wednesday, Thursday, if it's still bearing down on our home, then we're going to start, putting plastic over certain things, hurricane proofing the backyard, which means taking in everything that could get loose and fly, and various other things. But we do have lots of batteries and radios and emergency lighting and all that stuff. So we're okay. We're going to be okay. Now, relative to the volcano, it's not like a hurricane, even Cat 5, can actually pick up lava and fling it anywhere. But as I mentioned, I think it was just on yesterday's show, I'm very curious to see what would happen if the eye of that storm actually passes over all that heat. Because one time before, we had a hurricane that was basically aimed to go right up the entire chain of islands. And the eye of the storm went over Kilauea, and it wasn't erupting like it is now, but there's still a lot of heat that flows up from that area. And to me, it just seemed to like totally destroy the center of the storm, and it fell apart, and that was the end of it. Now, obviously, I'm not wanting for that to happen because those poor people on the Big Island have already been through enough. And I think, we've had enough excitement for 1 year. We had the record-breaking floods on Kauai. We've got the volcano over on the Big Island. We don't need a hurricane to keep ourselves from getting bored here. So we're all hoping it's going to like go someplace else and leave us alone. But when you live in Hawaii, hurricanes are a reality. And they can be bad, as we saw during Hurricane Iniki. They're saying that if this storm is Cat 5 and it does hit the islands head on, some parts of the state could be without power for as long as a week. So it's a serious...
Well, I'm just hoping everything goes all right over there. I know how it is, Mike, because we live on the Gulf Coast, and, we get them here, too. We had Ivan. I went through, that was one of the worst ones, but it's not fun, that's for sure.
No, it's not fun, and we're not looking forward to it, and we're hoping that it will just veer away. Our problem here, of course, is we're actually living up on a ridge line. We got a wonderful view out the back here of Pearl Harbor, but that means, all of those windows there are vulnerable to flying debris. And we don't own this place, so we don't have the option of like plywooding it up.
Well, I got hurricane shutters on here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do without them. When I built the house, I had them put hurricane shutters on it.
Yeah, well, the house I lived in as a kid in Loudon, New Hampshire, had hurricane shutters as well. And we went through a hurricane there. The eye passed right on over us, coming up from the south here. And it was, wind, and all of a sudden silence. And Mom let us step outside just for a minute. To look up, and we could see the walls of cloud all the way around the horizon, and straight overhead there were stars. It was just this very eerie view.
Yeah, I think the worst thing up here was the trees falling on houses. That really destroyed a lot of houses. A lot of trees fell and just mashed them.
Yeah, well, we're in a little bit of luck here. We did have one really tall tree here, but it's been taken down. We've got some short trees, and if the branches break off, they might damage the cars. It's just going to be what it's going to be, and everybody's getting ready. We're probably going to lay in a few more emergency supplies tomorrow, and we'll just keep our eye on it, and we'll hope for the best. But, Mother Nature's in charge here.
That's right. All right, buddy. Well, good talking with you, and stay safe.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network. Now, Sarah Sanders is, I have to admire. She's got guts. She stands up to those media people in that press room. She doesn't take any guff from them, and was responding to the corporate media's comments about how Trump obviously doesn't like them. And she said, well, look, it's obvious you don't like him. The corporate media has been biased against Trump going back all the way before the election. Why would the corporate media expect the president to have any positive feelings for them whatsoever, considering how they treated him during the campaign and during the first year and a half in office? If you want to be friends, you got to be friendly. But don't constantly abuse the guy and then whine when he's not being nice to you. That's totally unrealistic, and Sarah Sanders called him on it, and good for her. Now, something I do not agree on, we're going to talk about the economy for a while here. The Trump administration is considering acting unilaterally to institute a $100 billion capital gains tax cut, which of course would largely benefit the wealthy. This is coming out of the New York Times. And the Times is reporting that Treasury Secretary Mnuchin at a recent G20 meeting in Argentina said if the tax cut can't be done through Congress, the administration will look at what tools are necessary to consider the move. Well, there's a problem there because tax policy and revenue policy is supposed to originate in the House of Representatives under the Constitution. But Mnuchin is out there saying, if we can't get it done through the legislative process, we'll look at what tools at Treasury we have to do it on our own. And they're studying the economic costs and the impact on growth. Well, the economic costs are going to be that the debt is going to be going up even faster than it already is. Now, gold, of course, as we all know, is being manipulated, and it's lost 8% of its value over the past 3 months alone, and 11% from last January's high. But this is creating a buying opportunity. If you are thinking about just getting a few silver and gold coins or bars to just preserve some of your wealth, and it's a good idea, now's the time to do it. Buy low. Buy when it's low. And hang on to it. Just hang on to it. Now, over in Israel, there's an interesting phenomenon there. As you know, Israel's gone high-tech, but they actually have a shortage of high-tech workers. And so what they're doing is one of the areas in which they're allowing the Palestinians to come into Israel and work is in high-tech. And one of the reasons they like to do that is because they only have to pay the Palestinians 1/3 of what they pay the Israeli high-tech workers. So at least they're getting jobs after they get out of the computer science and engineering programs over in Palestine, which is more than you can say for a lot of U.S. college graduates. Over in China, the length of high-speed railway lines has increased to 25,000 kilometers in 10 years. That is a lot. It's basically 2/3 of the world's total of high-speed railway lines. Now, you have to be careful about, you know, what it means by high speed, because railway tracks have to be built to sustain the load of the trains going over them, and the faster the trains are going, the stronger the tracks have to be. Tracks are literally rated. They can carry so much weight at so much speed. I learned all this working for a railroad, or volunteering for a railroad museum. So those tracks for the high-speed railway lines, they're a special kind of track. They're built very strong. They're anchored very firmly in the earth. And China has built 25,000 kilometers of them. I wonder how many kilometers or miles of high-speed railway tracks the United States has right now. That would be an interesting thing to find on out here. We've been talking about people living in their cars. It's becoming a problem. The number of Americans living in their vehicles has increased 46% since last year. 46%. How can you look at, and a lot of these people have full-time jobs, but with wages and salaries being crushed on down and rents going up, they can't find a place to live, so they're living in their cars. They're working full-time only to live in their cars. You can't look at this and say that this economy is in good shape. It's in great shape if you're the top 1%. Times are booming. Trump now wants to cut your capital gains tax, make you even richer than you already are. Okay, let's talk about immigration and the refugee crisis. The refugees going into the European Union are basically being handled on a process of they come across the border, they send in their paperwork to apply for asylum status, then they just go on into whatever country they're going on into. And under Schengen, they can go into any country. And then if the asylum request is granted, they get to stay. Most of the asylum requests are being turned down. They don't really qualify. And now Germany has a problem. They can't find 50% of those they now want to deport. Nobody seemed to think that might be a possibility when this was all being set on up here. Now, an Italian boat has picked up 100 migrants from the Mediterranean, and the migrants got a surprise. The boat took them right back to Libya. See, the rationale behind all these so-called NGO humanitarian boats operating in the Mediterranean is the migrants will swim out into the Mediterranean like they're going to swim all the way over from Libya to Italy. And then, oh, we're in trouble, and these migrant boats will pick them up and boat them the rest of the way to Europe saying it was a rescue, where we're not just ferrying people over from Africa. We picked them up in the ocean. They were in trouble. It's a rescue. So that's what's going on. But this Italian boat picked them up, 100 migrants, took them back to Libya. Okay, this is an interesting story. Now, there's this previously convicted illegal alien. He's accused of sexually abusing an underage girl whom he's related to, and he's in prison in Utah, and he's been diagnosed with cancer, and he's being treated for cancer at U.S. taxpayer expense. And so far, he's run up about $1 million in bills. That's why this open borders thing isn't working. I mean, the guy is a child molester, and now he's just a further drain on the U.S. Treasury here. Now, Joe Crowley in New York, now he's the guy who actually lost his House seat to that 28-year-old socialist, is actually out there saying that America should pay illegal aliens for crossing the border as a kind of reward system. And he is absolutely serious. He actually wants to see them receive taxpayer dollars as support for all that he says they've had to endure under the Trump administration. He's saying they need to be compensated for what this administration did. What this administration did was enforce the law. This thing is seriously out of control. Maybe Crowley is just as stupid about the law as Hirono, who apparently, to judge from that hearing, didn't actually know that there is a law saying it's illegal to come into the United States without the appropriate paperwork. She actually thought Trump had just sort of signed something as an executive order that said you can't come in here anymore. It's a Title VIII violation. It's amazing. Now, over in New Mexico, there is a Democratic candidate for the New Mexico House, state level, Deborah Haaland, who is basically, she's been endorsed by Obama, and she's on the bandwagon of people calling for the abolition of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They want the open borders. They want the open borders here. There's another issue. Regardless of what they do with the immigration issue, we need the customs enforcement. They're like on the front line of illegal drug smuggling or illegal anything smuggling. Now, here's a little bit of a wrinkle. Over in Brooklyn, there was an illegal immigrant who fired a gun to frighten off gang rivals. That's another problem with the open borders. The gangs that used to be terrorizing Mexico are now terrorizing the United States of America. So this illegal immigrant gets arrested on a federal charge of being in the U.S. illegally and possessing a gun. But he claims he has a Second Amendment right that voids the charge. I don't think so. You're not a citizen. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights is for this country. It says right up at the top, we the people of this country. Now, Donald Trump is finally getting around to the issue of voter ID. I think he's way too late. He was speaking during a rally in Tampa, supporting GOP Congressman Ron DeSantis, who's running for governor. And Trump comes on out and says the time has come for voter ID like everything else. Well, finally, okay, let's see you do something about it. And it's got to be done fast. We've got only 3 months here till the midterms, and the Democrats are going to use every illegal immigrant they can to try and steal the Congress. And if they succeed, then you're a one-term president if you even make it to the end of your term. Trump is just this huge, huge disappointment. Meanwhile, over in Bosnia, they're afraid of becoming the new Calais. as migrants surge across their border. So it's a huge, apparently 50 migrants arrive in one town every single day. We'll be right back after these few words. We got a caller waiting on the line.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones. George in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Hearing about people living in their cars, especially out in the left coast, the west coast, we don't have that kind of problem, Mike. Here, depending where you're from, it's like, I know out in California, I know the rents are so high. You pay about $100,000 just to buy an outhouse out in California. And the taxes are high, the rents are high.
Yes.
And the thing is, in a lot of ways, I think California brought it upon itself. Many Californians.
Yeah.
But what's that?
Yeah, California brought it on themselves, with all of this liberalism out there and open borders and let's bring in the illegal immigrants and we got to give them money. and this Joe Crowley is now out there saying, oh, those illegal immigrants, they suffered so much coming across the border, we've got to compensate them. No, we don't. We got to fling them back over that border.
Well, he could do it with his money.
Yeah, I mean, if you,
mine.
yeah, if you yourself as a person want to donate money to an illegal immigrant friend, well, actually, that's a Title VIII violation right there. You're not supposed to do that. That's a Title VIII violation.
But one of the good news is in my county, it's because people are so up in arms about the raising of the property taxes. The people of the county want a complete independent audit going back 10 years, because a lot of people are starting to say is like, we don't need a raise in our property taxes. We need to audit the books to find out where this money's going.
That's a very, very good idea. But, if there's been any kind of financial skullduggery, they're going to run into a bit of a brick wall here. We're dealing with that here on Oahu because we have this disastrous light rail project, which is billions over in budget, years behind schedule. And there's a citizens group that has been calling for a full and complete audit. And everybody inside the light rail and even the state government, they're stonewalling and saying, no, we don't need an audit. Those are not the drones you're looking for. You can move along. So,
well, even like some of the county commissioners sat there and say, because the landowners were complaining about the property taxes being raised, he said those renters do not have a grievance. I'm sorry, but if you're a renter, man, the landlord passes the costs on to them.
That's exactly right. Yeah, when your property taxes go up, so do the rents.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I say, an audit. The thing is more like we hear people say drain the swamp in D.C. We got a bunch of little swamps around this country that need to be drained too.
Actually, the entire country is a swamp.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Jim in Chicago. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. Did you see the press conference with John Bolton, the head of the FBI, and some other people yesterday?
No, I missed that one.
Okay, they were talking about they have a lot of information and a lot of detail regarding Russia influenced the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
And after watching it, and after hearing John Bolton, who basically came across as saying, I'm in charge, like, hey, I did when Reagan was shot, I got the impression these guys, they don't have any respect for this president, and they wish he would just go away. And I don't understand, with all the problems in D.C., why in the hell is he going down to Tampa, Pennsylvania, going to Ohio? This is not a campaign year for him.
Well, technically it is, because he's the head of the GOP, and he can swing a lot of votes, and it is unfortunately something he needs to do, and he does enjoy doing it. And of course, Air Force One has all the communications that he needs, where those hours that he's in the air is when he's doing his real job. So it is a necessary evil of the midterm elections. So, but I'm going to take a guess here and say that during this press conference, that none of these individuals actually had any proof. It was just everybody repeating over and over, Russia interfered, Russia interfered, Russia interfered. And I think I did see a clip from it on Fox News where they said, and Russia's going to interfere in the midterms, and they're getting ready to interfere in 2020. And not one shred of evidence that it ever happened. This is just propaganda by repetition. They're just going to keep on repeating this over and over again until people will believe it because they've heard it so often.
I would agree with you, but I got the impression yesterday they don't want this guy around the White House. They don't want him around D.C. The reason why is it's better for them, and it's like they just took over the White House, and they're going to continue to be there. And in the back of my mind, I really do believe they want Mike Pence in there and not Trump.
Well, I know the Democrats want Hillary in there, but I don't see how that's going to happen. But again, the deep state are afraid of Donald Trump. he's not going to keep the cover-ups in place. These congressional investigations that are going on right now are starting to hit pay dirt. And that's what's got everybody panicked. Anyway, listen, Jim, thank you. I got to take another break for commercials. Jim, thank you for the phone call. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And during the commercial break, I went back over to the Pacific Hurricane Center's website. And the current predicted track for Hurricane Hector is starting to shift south and away from the Hawaiian Islands. Now, still could, anything could happen, but right now it looks like it'll miss us. We might get like the northern edge of the system, some rain, but certainly not the heart of the storm where the damage would be, which is great. Like I said, those poor people on the Big Island, they've suffered enough. All right, we're going to back to the phones here. Mark in North Carolina, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Mike, I was thinking, I'm not a socialist, but I also don't find forms of socialism a bad word like some people do. And when you talk about what's going on, with people living in their cars and all that, and the ridiculous expenses of, at least in certain parts of the country, of housing and of apartments, this is what I think should be done. All right, I think rather than give capital gains tax, what needs to be done is, first of all, as far as the builders go, a lot of these builders, especially in places like California, which is some of the highest real estate prices in the country, maybe the highest, New York too, but even more in California, they're hiring illegal aliens. It cut-rate salaries, depriving Americans of good-paying jobs, and making tremendous profits. It's not that the houses are being sold any cheaper. If it was up to me, I would tax, I would add excess taxes to them, and I would also tell them, you're only allowed to charge a certain amount per house. We're not going to allow you to keep on screwing the rest of the public.
Well,
and as far as
let me comment on that. First of all, it is a Title VIII violation for these companies to hire illegal immigrants, and you start prosecuting some of these companies, CEOs, personally, and that practice will stop. And there's another aspect to this that you need to be aware of. This huge influx of illegal immigrants and refugees is what's putting an additional strain on the housing market, because they're all finding places to live, and that creates a housing shortage, and that drives up the prices. There are 12 million illegal immigrants in this country. And if we got them all out, then there would be a lot of rental vacancies, rents would come down, and these legal American citizens who are working full-time could get out of their cars and get under a roof.
Well, in the meantime, until this is done, I think they should not only put those taxes on the builders and confiscate some of their profits, but I also think there should be a limit on what you can rent an apartment or a house for.
Well, I'm not in favor. I'm not in favor of taxing the builders. I'm in favor of simply going on out and start arresting them for hiring illegal immigrants. It is illegal to do so under Title VIII. And that's what is so frustrating about this open borders thing. Trump is out there, nattering and gromishing with the corporate media and the Congress about building his wall. He's the chief executive. He's in charge of law enforcement. Somebody needs to tell him there are laws on the book. He can send out the cops and start arresting anybody who's employing an illegal immigrant, arresting these mayors of these sanctuary cities, arresting anybody who's giving aid and comfort to illegal immigrants, because these are all crimes under existing United States law. And that's Trump's job, is to enforce the existing law.
I absolutely agree with you, but the problem is Trump doesn't seem to understand powers of the president. He doesn't, it's not just for that, and he keeps on putting the wrong type of people in his cabinet, in his government, and all that other stuff. I just think the man is, I hate to say it, but I don't think he's really greedy himself. He may have been greedy when he was a businessman. I don't think he's looking out to pad his own pocket or anything like that, like some people say. I think the man's just not competent to be president. Certainly better than Hillary. But but I just don't think, at least as far as he doesn't seem to understand what it is to be president. He tweets like he's complaining from the outside. Man, I've tweeted back to him. I said, use your powers. Start arresting people like Mueller. Start arresting people like Rosenstein. Don't keep letting them do this to you. They're in not only as far as
Mark, Trump does not have grounds to arrest either Mueller or Rosenstein, but he does have the authority to fire them.
Yeah, that he does. Absolutely. I think he has the grounds to arrest Rosenstein, at least, because Rosenstein evidently was involved in the original plot to elect Hillary and to defeat Trump. So I think he does have the grounds to not only fire but prosecute Rosenstein. Maybe not Mueller at this point. So I think Mueller's dirty going back many years.
Oh, no
Going
question
right back to
about
when he
that.
was-
I mean, he's got a long history of cover-ups. He was the go-to guy. If you had a scandal and you needed to cover it up and a cover story, Mueller was the guy you'd go to.
You know, a lot of people don't know that Whitey Bulger, the former, he wasn't actually Italian mafia, he was like Irish mafia,
Yes.
but he ran Boston. For all intents and purposes, the FBI, he ran the Boston area, the FBI, for quite a few years, and actually Mueller was really the consigliere. He was the U.S. attorney at the time. In effect, he was the mafia, Bulger's consigliere, because he did things that favored both. So the man is dirty as they come. I think he's also possibly responsible to cover up 9/11, and the thing with the anthrax. Okay, he tried to, he actually hurt innocent people in that.
Yes.
So Mueller's dirty.
Oh, you want to talk about hurting innocent
He
people?
really-
Getting back to Whitey Bulger, Mueller basically prosecuted and convicted 4 men for a murder they did not commit in order to protect Whitey Bulger.
Like I said, I consider Mueller his consigliere. The mafia consigliere.
Yep.
I think basically that was Mueller for all intents and purposes. This man is dirty as they come.
Yep.
They keep on, people go, oh, he's beyond reproach. Beyond reproach? Are you kidding me? The man's a snake. I'd have more confidence in a rattlesnake than I have in him.
Well,
I'd probably trust that snake.
you may have just found the answer to the question, why isn't Trump bringing any good people into the White House? There may be no good people anywhere in that city. And to be very honest...
Don't get him.
Okay,
I always wonder.
Your phone connection is breaking up. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, let me take the other.
Hello?
Coming any better now?
Oh, yes, now you are.
Okay. Yeah. If I was, for one thing, I could never understand, why didn't you take a guy like David Clark, the sheriff of Milwaukee County?
Yep.
Fixed up the border all along. Why didn't you make him the FBI director? Why you get rid of what's his name? Get rid of anyway. You get rid of one FBI director, and then you hire this other clown. When you have a guy like Clark.
Well, because he's getting bad advice from the people around him. Trump's single biggest mistake coming into the White House was he wanted to be magnanimous in victory, and he let all the Obama people stay on with this very naive belief that because he was now the president, they would be loyal to him. And that may be how it works in business. Usually it is. It's not how politics in Washington, D.C. works. What Trump should have done... Hang on, let me finish. What Trump should have done was literally hand everybody in the executive branch a pink slip and started bringing people from outside the Beltway, people who were not connected to the deep state, people who were not compromised. It doesn't take a lot of skills to do the jobs that these people are doing in the White House. And there are people outside the Beltway who are very qualified to be doing that work. And they would be loyal to Donald Trump. And that, I think, was his biggest mistake. And it's the mistake that is basically, I think, going to lead to his ultimate downfall. I think he's going to be a one-term president.
Well, that's what I thought, too. Like I said, I would think of Dave Clark for FBI director. Not that. He should have gotten rid of Comey in the first days. And he should have never hired another shyster lawyer like Ray from the Justice Department. He keeps, and then now he puts this woman from the CIA who's got, who's very close to Brennan. I mean, he makes no sense what he's doing. I can't, if he's not competent to run a presidency, if he wasn't ready to be president, he shouldn't have run. Maybe I don't know, Cruz would have won. Maybe even Rand Paul would have won.
Yeah, well, I've been very honest about it. If Bernie Sanders had won the Democratic nomination, I would have supported him.
I probably would have too.
Yeah,
I probably would have too.
I worked very, very hard to support Trump. Mostly it was about making sure Hillary didn't get into that Oval Office, because Hillary probably has some skills in government. She was Secretary of State, but she was campaigning on war with Iran, and with all the history of corruption and crime, she's the dark queen of the deep state. And I hope she's not going to run in 2020, because if she ever got into the Oval Office, that's the end of this nation. We'd be in a global war within weeks.
Well, no, I disagree on that. I think we'd be in a civil war, a shooting civil war.
Well, that may be happening anyway, and that does seem to be coming out of a lot of Hillary supporters. That Project Veritas video where Antifa is training on how to cripple people when they get into confrontations, that shows that we've reached a very, very dangerous phase. And I agree. We could see mass violence in the street, lethal violence in the streets of America. I don't want to see that. I want to find a way to just give this entire country the ice bucket challenge and cool them all down before we step over a line that we can't step back across.
But as far as Antifa goes, by the way, I saw that movie today with Dinesh D'Souza. Very good. I think he simplified it too much, though, between putting the Democrats and the Republicans left and right. There's something above that that's really, running things. But I think it was still a good movie. It was really well done. As far as Antifa goes, people better understand we better be ready for them one way or the other. But if she becomes president, I really do believe we would have a shooting war, because I think she'd come after the guns like almost immediately.
Yes.
The guns and the First Amendment. And people in this country could not, and would not let that happen. If we did, that'd be it for the United States of America as we know it.
All right. Well, Mark, I got to let you go. We're coming up on the third hour when Claire's going to come on in, and I still got a lot of talking points to get through. So thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. And all right. Now, we're talking about immigration. Over in Croatia, mass migration activists are literally warning the Croatian police to stop protecting the border. They're literally demanding the police officers disobey their orders to basically close the border, or face increasing pressure from foreign non-governmental organizations. I mean, now it's gone from "can we please come in" to "you will let us in." And the larger the percentage of refugees or illegal immigrants becomes, the more political power they will feel they have, until they can basically demand what they want. And especially with this attempt to normalize the idea that human rights means anti-white. This country is going to wind up like Zimbabwe, or like South Africa's about to. It'll be a disaster. But the liberals will feel they're on their way to this little fantasy world that they've invented here. Article came out of Hartist, basically saying this is what foreign invasion looks like. The number of migrants waiting to come into Spain is currently at 50,000 and growing. And the migrants are becoming more violent in their efforts to reach Europe. Now, Spain's socialist government gave the green light for open borders. This is national suicide, but then, of course, the globalists want the end of nations. Nation, what's a nation? We have no idea. It's one planet, one slab of cement, one throne, one private central bank. Now, a lot of the asylum seekers are claiming that they're fleeing persecution in their home country, that if they're not granted asylum, they'll be killed. Germany just started a program where they will pay asylum seekers for a 3-week vacation to go back home. Say, here's some money, go back home for 3 weeks, see if things are better. And apparently a lot of the migrants are taking them up on it. So I guess they weren't as afraid of conditions in their home country as they thought. All right, let's grab a phone call from, Layla in Canada. Aloha, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. I'm wondering about the breakup of Yugoslavia. I've read somewhere that it was done intentionally in preparation to facilitate the movement of migrants across Europe to different countries. And I think earlier in the show you discussed the fact that Bosnia is resisting Muslims, or maybe I've got it wrong.
Well,
because Bosnia is itself Muslim.
Well, no, Bosnia's concern is they don't want to become another Calais because of the influx of the refugees. And it is a huge, huge problem all across Europe and here in the United States of America. And it is amazing that George Soros and his globalists have managed to co-opt so many national leaders to go along with this thing at the expense of their own people. Crime is up. Knife crime is becoming epidemic. That's something that came in with the migrants as well here. And, you know, Angela Merkel keeps on pushing this open borders policy. The German people absolutely hate her. She will not survive the next election unless she's importing a bunch of Diebold voting machines.
Let's hope Europe survives until the next election. But with Croatia being primarily Catholic and Serbia being Eastern Orthodox Christian, the idea of Muslims coming into Croatia is really bizarre. The Croatians are very, very strongly defensive of their Catholic Christian religion. In fact, the Serbian Orthodox and the Croatians had great animosity because one was Orthodox and the other was Catholic at one time, and the Bosnian Muslims were there in the middle. But I remember it was Bill Clinton who was involved in the talks here in the U.S. with regard to the breakup of Yugoslavia, and they bombed Serbia in order to liberate, supposedly give Bosnia part of Serbian territory.
Okay, well, Layla, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to let you go. We got a commercial break, and I've only got about another 4 minutes to get news in before Claire shows up. So thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go ahead and close the phone lines for a while here while I get caught up in the news, and Claire comes on in here in about 5 minutes. So over in Germany, as I was mentioning to Layla, the opposition is really up in arms, and the Alternative for Germany leader, Gauland, basically came on out guns blazing for Merkel, calling for her resignation. And a lot of Germans are in agreement now, and the AfD's popularity is soaring because AfD wants out of the European Union, and they want no more of this open border refugees coming in nonsense, because it's basically bringing in crime, it's costing the government lots of money, and of course it's basically diluting their indigenous culture. And they don't want to see that happen. When you go into a country like Germany, it is the way it is because that's what those people have built it to be. And they're not comfortable, understandably, with a bunch of refugees coming on in and saying, well, we want to make this look like the place we came from. Well, if the place you came from was all that beautiful, why did you leave? Over in Italy, the Bishop of, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Chioggia, has criticized Catholic attacks on the Interior Minister Matteo Salvini for his efforts to curb illegal immigration, noting that people's frustration with Italy's immigration situation is not irrational. And it isn't. And good for this guy for having the courage to stand up instead of following along, you know, with the Pope says illegal immigration is good. And everybody says, yes, Pope, yes, Pope, yes, Pope. Now, in Britain, Theresa May has issued an ultimatum to the French saying, accept Chequers or it's no deal on Brexit. And France's hardline on Brexit is seen in London as a major stumbling block to a successful negotiation. The problem is, of course, Theresa May, her idea of a deal is just a total giveaway to the EU. And apparently there is a new movement, bought and paid for, I'm sure, by the globalists, to call for a second referendum. Oh, we're sure by now the people of Great Britain have changed their mind. They don't want to leave. They don't want to be their own free country again. Now, Michael Barnier has rebuked the British Brexit proposal, saying it poses a threat to the future of the European single market. And he issued this open letter aimed at Theresa May and her cabinet. It was published in 20 newspapers across Europe yesterday. And Barnier, who's the European Union's chief negotiator, basically issued a stark warning to Prime Minister Theresa May. Basically, he's sending a signal. The Chequers plan is not going to be acceptable. Going to be hardline. All right, there's the music, and we're going to take a quick break for station identification, and we'll be back here with the lovely Lady Claire.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. And for those of you watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire.
Aloha.
And Claire, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think that you've mentioned this, but I have another approach, if you will, or view. And this is how Congress is rushing to spend billions on space weapons, even if they don't work. And there has been no information coming from the Defense Department about it. And this week, Congress approved the development of missile interceptors as part of the 2019 National Defense Authorization.
These are the space missile interceptors.
Space missiles.
Right.
Yeah. And Mike, Congress seems to have this one thought that the only way you can resolve a problem is throwing money at it.
That's the American way.
Hello. No.
Just keep throwing money at it. And, I mean, look at the F-35 as a good example.
Oh, please, yeah.
The cost overruns on that.
Yeah.
And it's a lemon. It's a boondoggle.
Yeah.
So what do? Cancel the program? No, they're going to throw more money at it.
Yeah.
I mean, the plane is not even in combat service yet, and it's already having to go through a modernization and upgrade program.
Yeah, and what really is at the core of this, and if there are any listening in behalf of President Trump to this program, and I hope there are, the problem is a corrupt and completely politicized procurement program. And this is because these weapons companies lavish money on both parties for the elections. And so the leaders of these industries believe it's perfectly acceptable to produce products which are obsolete by the time they're delivered,
yes,
that absolutely do not work as advertised, and have horrific cost overruns. Well, now I know that there was a Supreme Court decision a couple of years ago about political contributions being an extension of free speech.
Well, that was the Citizens United.
Yes, Citizens United.
Where corporations were considered persons, and because of the First Amendment, they were allowed to basically give unlimited amounts of money to politicians. And that's their way of solving their political problems, giving unlimited amounts of money to politicians.
Yeah. But this has to stop. There has to be some kind of legislation which will prevent these companies from contributing.
Well, there used to be. I mean, Congress itself and the Supreme Court went along with this. They love the system the way it is. The money gets sucked out of the pockets of the American people and goes into the pockets of the defense contractors, who kick a lot of it back to members of Congress for their political campaigns.
Right.
And the members of Congress love these giant military programs because the defense contractors will subcontract large parts of these programs into the districts of the Congress people who support them.
Right.
So if you vote through this weapons program for, United Fuzz and their latest stealth ping pong ball, you can count on United Fuzz subcontracting part of that into your district. That'll create jobs. That makes your voters happy. And it is a corrupt system. And again, Eisenhower did warn us about it.
Oh, yeah.
The military-industrial complex. And this is more of it. they're basically starting to spend money on something they don't even have it yet.
Yeah.
And it's not only likely to be another boondoggle. It's going to be a huge waste of money, and it could prove to be very dangerous to space travel in general.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's almost a replay of Reagan's Star Wars. And I got an email from somebody reminding me that Star Wars was as much a bluff to the Soviet Union to get them to overspend on their weapons, which is part of what led to their collapse here.
Right.
But there is no question that the Defense Department did take all that money and spend it. And I know because the company I was working for out in Hollywood actually got a chunk of that. We were contracted to develop graphics for a defense contractor's presentation back to Congress. And by the way, did you know that Charlton Heston actually had a top secret clearance?
No, I did not.
Because they wanted to hire him to do voiceovers for these presentations to Congress.
Right.
And because these presentations very often had classified information, they went through the process of getting a security clearance for Charlton Heston.
Wow.
Little Hollywood secret you didn't know there.
Yes, definitely. And the second...
I met him once. He wasn't as tall as the movies made him look.
Okay. They cast a lot of shorter people around him to make him look taller, right?
Well, they would do that. I mean, believe it or not, when they did, I know we're going off topic here, wandered down memory lane. When they would do the John Wayne Westerns, they would build the entire set of the town slightly smaller to make him look bigger.
Right.
We're sneaky out in Hollywood. What can I tell you?
And the other thing that I think needs to be addressed, and it would be put into every weapons contract, and the title of this would be Weapons Failure Treason Act. And if products are not delivered on time, do not work as advertised, and start to have huge cost overruns, the executives of those companies can and will be charged with treason, tried by a jury of their peers, convicted, and do hard jail time. Is this draconian? Yes. Would it cure the problem? Would it go a long way to doing it? I think so. And I think we have
we're
a
going to
shout
do a
out.
shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network. The problem here is that everyone calls in and says there ought to be a law. You seem to forget the laws are the way they are right now because the people who pass these laws and make these decisions want it this way. And they're not listening to us. As long as we have riggable elections, and our elections are probably the easiest to rig on the planet, the system is out of our control. And everybody who's inside this system, they're looking out for their own welfare, they're looking out for their own pocket, and they absolutely, love things the way they are. And Eisenhower was right. That's all we can keep on saying. Eisenhower was absolutely right.
Absolutely. Something that you did not hear or see about much, the Air Force remained silent after a huge meteor hit near a U.S. military base in Greenland. And NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab has confirmed that an object of unspecified size, traveling at 24.4 kilometers, how fast is that in miles, honey?
Kilometers per second. I'd have to get out my calculator.
Oh, okay. All right. And it struck the Earth in Greenland just 43 kilometers north of an early warning Thule
early missile warning site at Thule Air Force Base.
Yes.
That was.
And there was a gentleman, director of the Nuclear Information Project for the Federation of American Scientists, Hans Christensen, tweeted about the impact, but the Air Force didn't say a thing about it. Mike, why?
Well, that is a very good question, and that wasn't my talking points I didn't get to.
Okay.
Now, considering that the whole purpose of this base is to detect incoming missiles, one would think that they would have seen this rock coming down out of space. The fact that this other individual from this, let me get here, Nuclear Information Project for the Federation of American Scientists means they were wondering if it was a nuclear explosion of some kind.
Yeah.
And now, I used to work at JPL. I know what their capabilities are, but they're not the institution that's in charge of tracking near-Earth objects.
Right.
And because it came down over Greenland, it's not like there's a lot of cameras or telescopes watching the skies over there. So it raises the possibility, was this in fact some kind of a clandestine weapons test of a really huge explosive, and it was picked up on seismographs, and they're trying to basically say it was a big meteor. Now, meteors do come down. There's no question about that. But the fact that the Air Force that was right there didn't report it does raise some eyebrows.
Like they sort of didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't see it coming, then we need to replace that crew at that radar station.
Immediately, if not sooner.
Yes.
Yeah. Wanted to go over to more of the actions of the nanny state in New York. The health department shut down a 7-year-old's lemonade stand to protect society from unlicensed lemonade. And in June, Country Time Lemonade Company launched a campaign pledging to pay fines and permit fees for young entrepreneurs who were remanded by state police. Reprimanded by state police for their harmless refreshment stands. And the story below proves why that campaign was so desperately needed. The vendors around this venue called the State Department of Health, and they were either completely brainwashed by the state into thinking that the boy was committing some kind of crime, or they, like so many other corporate welfare leeches do, were using the state to shut down their competition. And Department of Health spokesman Gary Holmes said that one of the department inspectors closed down the stand at the entrance of the Sarasota County Fair after 4 separate vendors complained about it.
Yeah, it sounds like they're trying to get the state to shut down their competition.
Yeah,
and again, when I was a kid, everybody did lemonade stands.
Yeah.
Nobody needed a permit.
No.
Nobody got sick. How do you mess up lemonade? You know, you make sure that the pitcher is clean. You put in fresh water, ice, lemon, sugar.
Yeah.
Stir it up, sell it. That's it.
And it wasn't that the lemonade was bad, and this next statement goes to the heart of it. We don't want to kill the dreams of a little boy, but for safety, they need a permit. They had no idea if the lemonade was safe or not. It was the idea
now,
of the permit.
Hang on a second. This next line is important. We will help them get the permits, because that goes back to a story I reported yesterday where over in Minneapolis, there was this teenager who basically set himself up a hot dog stand. He got shut down for not having the health department permit, and volunteers within the Minneapolis Health Department said, we're going to teach him, we're going to get him his permit, and now he's back in business as a legal business. But you know, you ever hear the law of the hammer?
Yes.
Well, if you give a small child a hammer, everything he encounters needs pounding.
Yes.
That same mindset applies to government. If you give a government authority, everything they encounter needs regulating or legislating or banning. And we've gone from a nation in which you're free to do pretty much anything you want, you know, unless the government says no, into a nation where you have to ask the government's permission before you do anything at all.
Yeah. That,
you know,
that's
dear
so
government,
bogus.
can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah,
I have to go to the bathroom now. Do you have a
Exactly.
permit? No, I don't. Well, then just sit there and pee your pants.
You know, it's ridiculous. I know that you covered this earlier on in the show, but there is an issue that I would like to bring up, and that is on this U.S. military aid to Israel, set to exceed a record $3.8 billion. And it's expected to be voted on by the House within the week.
I'm expecting it'll pass.
Yeah.
Almost unanimously.
Yeah. And in light of the fact that the IDF since March 30th have killed 164 Palestinians, including 26 children, journalists and medics, and injured upwards of 17,000 Palestinians living in Gaza, over half of whom had to be hospitalized for their injuries, including more than 1,400 children. No. Congress has no right. They also have no right, while there is one homeless person sleeping in this country, not through any fault of their own, or one homeless vet sleeping rough in our streets. And that this legislation was passed when Israel has just kind of relieved itself in President Trump's face and told him it was raining. And it's with the passage of this nation-state law, which marginalizes all Palestinians, Druze, and Christians into a complete third-class non-citizen. and paves the way for complete annexation of East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, what are they going to do when people have no way to go, when their homes have been annexed? Where are they supposed to go, Mike?
Well, Israel doesn't really care. They just want them to go someplace else. Just go across the border, and find someplace else.
But the countries, the Middle Eastern countries surrounding Israel, have no more space. They're saturated with the refugee camps,
Yes,
right?
they are.
Yeah.
They are.
Mm-hmm. And here is another thing about which I am sure our listeners and readers didn't hear much last week. A reminder of how often fracking pipelines blow up. 7 hospitalized after a series of explosions in Texas. Did you hear this?
No, I didn't hear this part of it.
Okay. A series of natural gas pipeline explosions in Texas on Wednesday sent 7 people, including a pair of firefighters, to the hospital. And it was a series of pipelines exploding in Midland County, Texas on Wednesday. And there is an expert, a New York-based scientist, Dr. Sandra Steingraber, who advocates against hydraulic fracking, a fossil fuel extraction method some call fracking. And she tweeted that her experience seeing an update on the explosion reminded her how often pipelines carrying natural gas will blow up.
They do.
Yeah.
And of course, that basically is how fracking works. You've
Mhm.
got all of these fracking wells spread all across the countryside, and they're all hooked up to this pipeline network.
Mhm.
Hang on a second. They're all hooked up to this pipeline network, and of course, they're built as cheaply as possible to maximize profits, and
Yeah.
they do blow up.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, the new president of Mexico is saying that he will ban fracking in Mexico. They're going to go after their oil and gas the
Mhm.
old-fashioned way.
Yep.
One hole in the ground, one pipe instead
Right.
of 1,000 holes and 1,000 pipes.
Well, pipelines can be made to work more safely. It's just that U.S. oil companies are not really mandated to
No,
make
they-
them as safe as they
They're going
could.
to use the cheapest materials they
Yeah.
can, and they're not going to maintain them properly.
Yeah.
If it blows up, it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, couple of deaths, maimings, who cares?
We'll let the insurance companies work it out.
Yeah, yeah. This is another article about Obama having signed off on the use of terrorists in the Middle East. And a very good example of this to date would be the UK and US funding the White Helmets in
Yes.
Syria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we now know were actually part of al-Nusra.
Yeah. And often these stories are then covered up and then called out as conspiracy theories.
Oh, you wacko conspiracy
Yeah,
theorist,
yeah.
you. Where's your tinfoil hat here?
But yesterday, I believe, was the anniversary of the Gulf of Tonkin.
54th anniversary.
Incident on August 2nd, 1964, which was faked to provoke American support to the Vietnam War. Oh, and more recently, the U.S. government paying for fake patriotism at big football games to boost Army recruitment.
That
And
was another conspiracy that turned out to be true.
yeah, yeah. And their media partner, Bureau of Investigative Journalism at Global Research, revealed in 2016 that a controversial UK public relations firm, Bell Pottinger, received over $500 million, let me give that figure to you again, over $500 million to run a top secret propaganda program in Iraq following the U.S. invasion. Now, the group is now bankrupt, but they produced fake videos about terrorist organizations and their awful acts of depravity, beheadings in orange jumpsuits, anyone, designed to continue public support for the ongoing war. And I'd like to remind everyone, this was while Barack Obama was in office. It
And,
was
you know,
under Obama's
They,
watch.
they weren't even that good. I mean,
Yeah.
I spotted the fact that they were faked.
Yeah. And of course, no one called Obama out on this because
did.
his cool factor couldn't be publicly sullied. Amazing. And from the Department of You Knew This Had to Be Coming, Amazon has removed gun activists' website after 3D printed weapons blueprints were posted.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Well, hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Cody's website. This is a new one, CODISFreeSpeech.com.
Yeah.
And the issue, of course, is that there is a temporary injunction against these plants being posted.
Yeah.
But this story actually illustrates what I was saying about the cat is already out of the bag on this one, because apparently this CODISFreeSpeech.com is already back up and running on additional servers. They're not going to be able to get this back under control. And I'm sure a lot of people are downloading these files, and they may not be printing out the guns now, but they're going to save those files for some way down the road when it might be necessary.
And now that tariffs and sanctions are going to hit the Chinese have just issued their retaliation list to U.S. tariffs and will levy tariffs on $60 billion in U.S. goods. This is not getting better, Mike.
All right, we're going to have to take a break here for commercials, and we will be back after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customers. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we are closing the phone lines for this hour because we've got a lot of stuff to get through.
I'm into that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Claire, please pick up where you left off.
Apparently, China is preparing to impose duties at levels of 25, 20, 10%, and 5% on some 5,207 American goods And these will be implemented as soon as the U.S. enacts its own tariffs, which is due to start up, what, in the next week?
I think so, yeah.
We're doing sanctions against Iran on Monday. I know those are coming down. But it's a lot of stuff. Soybean oil, peanut oil, corn oil, olive oil, mutton, dried, smoked, and salted beef, coffee, wheat, flour, spirits, wine, semiconductors, chemical products.
China buys semiconductors from us?
Amazingly enough.
Okay.
Chemical products, liquid natural gas, small and medium-sized airplanes, and automotive parts and lumber. And more importantly, the Chinese list includes tariffs on some aircraft, which could be a problem for Boeing. Although right now,
Yes.
only small and medium-sized airplanes will be affected. And Mike, how do we walk back from this? What do we do?
Somebody's got to be the adult in the room and say, look, this has gone on long enough. This is counterproductive.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I feel we're headed for disaster because, the U.S. is throwing sanctions everywhere. The sanctions are hitting Iran, as you said on Monday.
Yeah.
Congress is looking at a new bill for even more sanctions against Russia.
Yeah.
The U.S. is threatening sanctions against everybody in Europe who refuses to go along with the sanctions against Iran. And I think the cumulative effect of all these sanctions is the United States is isolating itself both politically and economically from the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is basically learning how to get along without the United States of America. And I don't think that was what the United States wanted.
No.
The United States wanted to return to this hegemonic domination of the world's economy through the U.S. dollar. And instead, they're heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, Iran is talking about barter
Yes.
in terms of being able to sell their oil. And
China's going to keep on buying Iranian oil.
Turkey's going to keep on buying.
Yeah.
So what if the sanctioning doesn't work as planned? It's going to be a disaster.
I don't think it's basic. It's certainly the globalists have got to understand that this is leading to a further breaking up of everything they put together, like the EU. And again, I think the rest of the world is learning how to get along without the United States. One of the stories that we ran earlier today was how all these Southeastern Asian nations are pivoting toward China. They see China as clearly on the ascendancy. They see U.S. influence in the region waning. We are an empire in decline.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess like anyone who's at death's door, they're hallucinating and just lashing out. And that's almost seems to be what Washington, D.C. is acting like.
Yeah.
Just in a panic, trying everything they can think of. But this sanctions war is hurting a lot of ordinary people because you and I, we pay those sanctions.
Yeah.
Because the sanctions make the price of things we are buying go
worse.
up.
Yes.
And again, in the case of things that are coming in from China, we don't really have domestically produced replacements yet.
Yeah.
So we are forced to buy the Chinese products even at the higher price. Where does that tariff money go? Into the government's pocket.
Doing what? Absolutely nothing.
Oh no! We're buying bombs and we're buying bullets and we're conquering the world to make America great again by making everybody else less great.
Yeah. And the BRICS nations are already moving far away from the SWIFT system and the U.S. dollar.
Absolutely. You've got BRICS, and Turkey now wants to join them.
Yes.
You've got the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
And you've got the Silk Road.
Well, Silk Road is less financial and more transportation.
Yeah, and trade.
Yeah.
But that's got to be a factor too.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Anyway, next story.
I'd like to save the next story for the next segment because there is a lot we need to say.
Okay. All right. Well, then let me do a real quick story from my talking points here.
Alrighty.
Apparently, non-governmental organizations are now slamming Google's reported plan to launch a censored search engine in China, saying that Google is putting profits before human rights. And apparently, Human Rights Watch is basically on the warpath over this. Meanwhile, hackers have infected over 200,000 MikroTik routers with crypto mining software.
Ooh.
And that is also something that has gone completely out of control here. And I'm glad I really didn't buy in too heavily to that. Up in Alaska, in the borough of Matanuska Susitna, which is referred to by locals as Matsu, ransomware got into their system, originally infecting 60 of the borough's Windows 7 PCs. The IT department tried to clean the infection up. The malware attacked back, spreading to almost all of the 500 workstations.
Oh, man.
Network telephones and email went down, door card entry was disrupted, and people are back to using typewriters. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. I sometimes miss them.
I know. It was very...
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about AngioPrim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking AngioPrim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in AngioPrim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call AngioPrim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination of garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite is designed to strengthen the heart and arteries and help the body heal itself. Doctors are not able to explain the improvements they are seeing in their patients' health who are taking Extendivite. People who once needed more pills are now taking less and getting better. Due to the unexplainable improvements in their patients' health, more doctors are calling to order Extendivite for themselves. Help Extendivite make your doctor a believer. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Some have maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And Claire, give us the story that you made us wait so breathlessly for.
This is part of what one could call hidden history. And this comes to us from RT, the English language version. And it claims that the U.S. used Hiroshima atomic bomb victims as guinea pigs. This is the story of one of their survivors. And they used these people as lab rats, if you will, for U.S. research. And the post-war occupation forces censored media reports which were attempting at the time to shed light on the atrocity. And Setsuko Thurlow, a nuclear weapons disarmament activist and survivor of the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima, told RT's Sophie Shevardnadze that U.S. forces occupying Japan after the end of World War II were more interested in studying the effects of nuclear warfare than they were in helping the victims of the attack. And the U.S. apparently established an institution called the ABCC, the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, and people were very happy that finally they got some medication and some medical experts who knew what this was all about and who would help Japanese doctors who had not a clue. But the sole purpose actually was to study the effects of radiation on human bodies, not help the people who got sick because of the radiation. And survivors felt like they were made to be guinea pigs twice, first with the targeting, and second as the subject of research. And U.S. occupation forces did all they could to suppress media coverage about the deadly aftermath and its horrific and the horrific nature of the attack. And Mike, aren't some of those documents still classified today about Hiroshima?
Yeah, they really are. And of course, this being August, we're coming up on the anniversary of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mm-hmm. Now, I agree that probably more effort should have been put in to helping the victims of the bombing. Mm-hmm. But the war had just ended. I'm sure there was a tremendous amount of animosity. Mm-hmm. They got what they deserved kind of thinking. And you need to understand that while today we have a pretty good understanding of nuclear radiation and its effects and what it's doing, it was all brand new back then. Mm-hmm. They really, it was all the first of everything. There'd been one really ugly accident during the development of the uranium bomb, mm-hmm. Which killed one of the scientists.
Tickling the dragon's tail, wasn't it?
Tickling the dragon's tail when they were playing around with these two subcritical masses to make sure that they would actually react when they came together. And he slipped with a screwdriver. It started to heat up, and he basically took it apart with his hands. Yeah. And had a very long, lingering, painful death. Yeah. And I'm sure the scientists were studying him and trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I'm not making excuses for what was done, but I can understand that they had this hideous new weapon using a form of energy that people really didn't know about.
They didn't understand it.
They
at the
didn't
time.
understand it, and they really did need to. But I agree that, looking back in hindsight, perhaps a little more care for the survivors of the bombing might have been warranted, given that they were, for the most part, civilians.
Yeah. Something else I thought people should know about: your tax dollars at work. The U.S. money to support Afghan irrigation helped poppy.
I can tell you're a city kid.
Oh, irrigation helped poppy cultivation.
Okay, here we go. So now
Lord.
we have the U.S. government is spending your tax dollars to build irrigation systems for the opium poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Could it be any more obvious that the biggest drug smuggler in this country is the country?
Yeah. And the U.S. has spent more than $8.62 billion, with a B, on counter-narcotics efforts in Afghanistan from 2002 to 2017.
No, they're spending it for completely other things. A while back, there was a video came out, Nation Betrayed, was by Bo Greitz.
Yes.
And he was talking about how during Vietnam, there was all this opium coming in from Vietnam to the United States, and how the U.S. was out there saying, we're spending all this money to fight the drug problem. And it turned out the money was being used to build paved roads up to the Kunsa's place.
Yeah.
Because on the dirt track, it was 2 days by horseback, and they built the road so it was like half an hour by truck.
Wow.
And so whatever they spent this money on, I don't think it's on counter narcotics.
Yeah.
You know, if they're building irrigation systems for the opium fields.
Hello.
And you've all seen the article I put together, Opium in Afghanistan. It's filled with photos of the opium poppies being guarded and protected by the coalition troops, and the sacks of the raw opium
Yeah.
being loaded onto trucks
Yeah.
by coalition troops.
I mean, this is insane, and you won't see any of it on any of the prostitute corporate media.
No,
of
you
course.
won't, which is why they're trying to shut us down here.
Yeah. And apparently, their analysis revealed that no counter narcotics program led to lasting reductions in poppy cultivation or opium production.
Imagine my shock.
Yeah, and no lasting impact. And the programs were often too short term and failed to provide sustainable alternatives to poppies, and sometimes even contributed to poppy production. You know, I mean,
What did they do for all that money? Just stand at the edge of the opium poppy field and say, "Bad poppies,
yes,
bad poppies,
yes,
don't you do
you
that?"
know, yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
And of course, that's where our current opioid crisis came from, because now there's a cheap supply of opium pouring into this country,
Yep.
both into the pharmaceutical corporations who are turning them into opioid drugs and incentivizing doctors to get Americans hooked on them. Plus, you got the street traffic. And it's also been flowing into Russia. Russia's not happy about that at all. You know, it's like the U.S. government has gone totally, totally criminal.
Yes.
It's an organized crime gang.
Yeah, it is. And want to go over to another aspect of organized crime, which we have in the FBI, definitely. Privately, senior intel officials are supporting President Trump revoking
Well, we
security
actually did that one.
clearances. Okay.
All right.
Alrighty. And, but why are they not taking it away from Hillary Clinton? And why the heck not now?
Well, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's my question. Did she keep her security clearance as Secretary of State?
Yeah.
If so, why? And why is she not on the list to have it revoked? I mean, of all the people that are on that list that Trump put together,
Yeah.
she's the one with the past history of, even at the most generous, careless disregard for the handling of classified information.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of scandals in government, apparently the Justice Department is silent about why it has failed to preserve the Comey emails in an FOIA case. And apparently the DOJ is refusing to preserve work-related emails on former FBI Director James Comey's private account. And the Justice Department Inspector General disclosed that Comey used a personal email account to conduct agency business. Does this sound familiar? Does it have a familiar
sounds very,
ring,
very
dear?
familiar here.
Yeah, yeah. And the Daily Caller News Foundation and Judicial Watch requested this information under the FOIA. And
Well, it's more than a request. They got a court order.
yeah,
You know, or I guess they're going to file the request in court today.
yeah, yeah.
You know, but I mean, this has been going on all along. These documents are supposed to be public records. That's
Right.
what the Freedom of Information Act is all about.
Yeah.
And these watchdog groups are asking for the information, and Department of Justice and FBI just sit there and go, no, you can't have them.
Yeah.
And so Judicial Watch has to go to court, spend their money,
Yep.
get a judge to say, yeah, the Department of Justice has to turn it over. And they're just dragging it out and dragging it out and dragging it out. And like I said, Trump needs to understand the plan is to just stall and stall and stall in the hope that the Democrats are going to steal the House of Representatives.
And all these investigations will go away.
And as of January of next year, all the investigations will go away. And Trump needs to understand he's got to do something about this.
Yeah.
Or he's a one-term president. You know, or they're going to find a way to get him out.
Yeah.
I would think the man would have a stronger survival instinct.
Yeah,
But he doesn't
that's
seem
wild.
to.
No. And they filed the Judicial Watch and the DCNF filed a joint lawsuit under the FOIA law on 25 April, including emails Comey produced regarding meetings and conversations he had with then President Barack Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden, and a variety of other political figures. And you're right, Mike, they're stonewalling like crazy.
They really are. And obviously from all this stonewalling and cover-up, there's obviously something bad has been going on inside our government.
Yeah.
And now they're upset that you, the sheeple, are finding out about it.
Yes, they
And
are.
that's why they're on the warpath against the independent media.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because, they love their image of being, trustworthy and having gravitas, and, we're honorable people and everything. And quite the contrary. I mean, even the mafia dresses nice. Doesn't make them good people.
No, definitely not. And speaking of cover-up, there's one going on with the European Union. Apparently, Brussels is hiding a document revealing why members of the European Parliament, 50,000 pound expenses won't be reformed. And they have blocked secret documents which can be used to prevent a complete overhaul of these expenses from becoming public. A senior official claimed its publication would seriously undermine the institution's decision-making process.
Yeah.
Can we say slush fund, boys and girls? I knew you could.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with undermining the decision-making process. And
it has to do with
yeah.
the people of the European Union finding out that the EU Commission is just as crooked as Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and that's got to be a real letdown to the people who thought that the EU was and would be a very good idea.
Well, I think all government above the level of the county seat is going to be hopelessly corrupt.
Yeah. And I'd like to bop back to Yemen at this point. On Wednesday, August 1st, the Houthis presented a peace plan to the coalition and said that they would halt all naval operations for a period of time, and how the Saudis and the coalition responded was to kill 52 civilians yesterday at Yemen's Hodeida fishing port. They carried out an attack on the port and the market in this city, killing at least 52 civilians and wounding scores more. The death toll was confirmed by the local health office. Dozens of wounded are still at the site, trapped under rubble. Saudi officials have denied involvement, claiming the Houthis attacked their own city. Oh, right.
Come on. That was the shark.
Yeah, shark just jumped.
Yeah.
Okay.
The shark's down in the water saying,
Yes.
oh, look, there goes Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. The Red Cross say that they're rushing equipment to Al Thwatha Hospital, where 50 people are in critical condition and God knows how many more. The gate that was just hit by the attack is 20 meters away from the hospital, which made it, more convenient to getting the wounded treated. However, you have to wonder if the hospital was also a target.
Well, they targeted a hospital a few days ago, I
Yeah,
think.
that seems to be their MO. And again, you will hear nothing about Yemen on the lamestream press, the prostitutes and the correspondents.
Nope, they're not saying a word about Yemen. And by
Yeah.
the way, now that we've obviously lost in Syria, you don't hear about Syria anymore.
Yes, noticed.
All of that stuff about Assad is evil, Assad has got
Yeah.
to go, Assad is gassing his own people,
Yeah.
Assad passes wind in the elevators.
Yeah.
It's all gone away,
Yeah.
like it was never there.
Yeah. And I am quite sure that the BOY, aka the Butcher of Yemen, aka Saudi Prince bin Salman, is just ecstatic about the large number of non-combatants his Air Force has killed. I am amazed, though, Michael, that they haven't come and carpet-bombed the entire country into complete
Well,
rubble
it's a
by
big
now.
country. It's a big country, and the idea is that they want to restore the U.S. puppet ruler and still have the country functioning in order to make it profitable. This is
Okay.
not about a war between the people. It's always about the money. It's
Yeah.
always about control
Yeah.
of the oil. It's also, in this case,
Mhm.
about control of transit routes.
And from the Department of You Cannot Make This Stuff Up, yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu threatened to send the Israeli military into Yemen to prevent further bombings in the Gulf, which he claimed were the fault of the Iranians. When in doubt, blame the Iranians, right?
Or the Russians.
Or the Russians,
Yeah.
yeah. And the strait where the Saudi ship got hit, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, is very geostrategically important. And possibly one of the reasons that the Saudi-led coalition against Yemen happened in the first place. It connects the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea and has potential as a choke point on global oil trade. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, you've got 4.8 million barrels of oil pass through the strait every day. That's a lot of oil.
That's a lot of oil.
Yeah. And the Saudis stopped sending their ships through the strait, after Yemen resistance fighters attacked 2 Saudi vessels in the waterway.
Well, they've turned north and they're going through the Suez Canal.
Yeah. And Netanyahu falsely claimed that the Houthi rebels, who constitute a major part of the Yemeni resistance movement, Ansar Allah, are working at Iran's behest. And he stated that if Iran will try to block the Straits of Bab el-Mandab, I am certain that it will find itself confronting an international coalition of guess who that will be determined to prevent this, and this coalition will also include all of Israel's military branches.
Well, so I once again, Israel's trying to get war with Iran going.
Yep.
They got they succeeded in getting a war against Iraq to break that up, and now Iran is in the crosshairs.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You all get to pay for it, and your children all get to be killed and crippled for it.
Yeah.
Don't it make you just prouder than heck to be an American?
Not really, my dear.
Yeah.
Apparently, Erdogan and the EU are on a collision course in the Balkans. Now, what has happened with the Prime Minister of Turkey? Turkey used to be a secular country.
Yes.
And it has now moved into what one could say is a theocracy.
Yes.
Where Islam is the primary religion. And boy, if you're a Christian in Turkey, there can be all kind of heck to pay.
Yep.
But now Erdogan has been banned from promoting his dangerous Islamic agenda across the European Union, so he's now seeking to use his growing influence in the Balkans against Western countries. Erdogan's aggressive return to the Balkans increased concerns among critics in southeastern Europe, the region where he is pursuing more aggressive policies and strategically spreading his brand of Islamist nationalism through a network of mosques and religious institutions.
I am getting a strong sense of bias in the writing of this article, against Turkey. There's a lot of loaded words in there. You need to understand, Turkey, Erdogan, has been pivoting away from the West ever since that botched coup d'etat. All right, we're going to take a commercial break here. Last one of our show. We'll be back with the last segment of our show after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. There's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, our last segment on this Powhana Friday here. And Claire, you have one more story you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I do. And this comes from Global Research, which is a Canadian outlet that has some very sober and intelligent writing. And this piece was put out by veteran intelligence professionals, VIPs to Trump. Intel on Iran could be catastrophic. And they put it in caps in comparison with the catastrophe of Iraq. And yes,
the intel in Iraq wasn't catastrophic. It was fake.
It was cherry picked and
It
fake.
wasn't even cherry picked. It was made up out of whole cloth.
Yeah. And they have been sending out and pointing out to President Trump that Iran's current support for international terrorism is far short of what it was decades ago, and that he is being played by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claim about Iran, as they are based on intelligence exposed as fraudulent several years ago. And Netanyahu waited for the new national security advisor to be in place for 3 weeks. That would be Bolton, right?
Yes.
Before performing his April 30 slideshow, alleging that Iran has a covert nuclear weapons program. And on the chance, they say, that our analysis of Netanyahu's show and tell failed to reach you, please know that the Israeli prime minister was recycling information from proven forgeries, which they reported to him last spring.
Yep.
And that, that's abominable. And I know that the story that's been very much on the news about this missing teenager, and it's every parent's nightmare.
Yes.
But folks, we are getting conditized yet again. And, prayers that the parents and all of the responders will find her alive and in one piece. But I think that this deserves far more airtime in terms of a potential strike against Iran.
I would definitely
Yeah.
agree. And,
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before in the show,
Mhm.
Iran is conducting a naval exercise this weekend, practicing to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
U.S. ships are in the area.
Mhm.
The U.S. could or even Israel could sneak in with one of their submarines.
Sure. False flag.
Sink a
Yeah.
U.S. ship and say, oh, look what Iran did.
Yeah.
Because that's how wars get started.
Mhm.
And again, look at the long history of all the times we've been lied into war.
Yeah.
Spanish mine in Havana Harbor, torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, no weapons on the Lusitania. Pearl Harbor was a surprise. Saddam's nukes, Assad's sarin gas,
Yeah.
and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, Israel is putting out faked and forged information. Remember the motto of the Mossad: by way of deception, thou shalt do war.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wish that Netanyahu was not one of President Trump's BFFs, because he's only saying information filtered through his viewpoint.
And that is a bad thing here.
Yeah.
And again, I'm disappointed in Trump. He did campaign on getting out of all this foreign intervention nonsense.
Yep.
But then so did Barack Obama back in 2008.
Yeah, they all say it.
You know.
They all say it.
And I got to tell you, I am still convinced that we're headed to a major global war that the United States of America will lose, even if it goes nuclear, especially if it goes nuclear. So there's the music. Time for us to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. A reminder, if it's still on your cable, pay-per-view, whatever, the movie is called Shock and Awe. It's about the Knight Ridder reporters who dared question whether Saddam really had weapons of mass destruction.
And
of
God
course,
bless them.
Ultimately, history proved them correct.
Yeah.
So have a really good weekend. Have a safe weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.